The secrets Helena Blavatsky uncovered go beyond what most people ever notice in life. Today, you're about to explore the hidden dimensions of reality and discover how understanding them can give you clarity, focus, and control over your daily experience. This video will show you practical steps to train your awareness, strengthen intuition, and apply ancient principles to make real, visible changes in your life. You'll learn how to notice patterns, track energy shifts, and use these insights to improve decisions, relationships, and personal growth. By the end, you'll have actionable strategies you can implement immediately to reshape your reality and move closer to your goals with confidence. Every tip in this video is designed to be simple, clear, and usable in everyday life. Subscribe for more content from Audiobook Shift to continue uncovering knowledge that transforms thinking into action and insight into progress. Number 1. Unlock hidden layers through observation. Observation is one of the quiet skills that most people underestimate, yet it shapes every part of life. When someone learns how to pay attention with clarity and intention, the world opens in ways that were always present but never fully seen. Hidden layers do not suddenly appear. The person becomes capable of recognizing them. Helena Blavatsky often described reality as something that stretches far beyond the physical senses, but the doorway to understanding any deeper dimension begins with simple, grounded observation. This chapter guides the reader through the process of noticing what usually goes unnoticed and using that awareness to grow stronger, calmer, and more capable each day. Observation starts with slowing down enough to see what is actually happening instead of what the mind assumes is happening. Most people move through their day on autopilot, reacting instead of watching, assuming instead of checking, rushing instead of noticing. When the mind is constantly pulled by noise, tasks, and distractions, it loses the ability to notice the quiet signals that guide better decisions. To unlock hidden layers, the person must create space inside themselves, even if only for a few seconds at a time. This is not about forcing silence, but about choosing to pay attention to what is already in front of them. When someone sits for a moment and feels the weight of their breath, the temperature of the room, the way their thoughts drift, they begin to see that awareness is a muscle. The more it is used, the stronger it becomes. Observation also means noticing personal reactions without judgment. A person may feel irritation rise when a message arrives, or tension appear when someone speaks a certain way. Instead of pushing these reactions aside, observation encourages the individual to watch them. Where does the feeling settle in the body? What thought rises first? Does the reaction make sense, or is it an old pattern repeating itself? By observing reactions this closely, the person starts to understand themselves on a deeper level. This understanding brings freedom. When they recognize what triggers them, they can choose how to respond instead of falling into automatic behaviors. This choice is one of the first hidden layers that become visible. It shows that self-mastery is not something mystical. It is built through small moments of clarity. Another part of unlocking hidden layers through observation is recognizing patterns in the people and environments around us. Every relationship, workplace, and social circle has signals that predict what will happen next. When someone trains their mind to notice the small details, a change in tone, a shift in body language, a new rhythm in daily events, they begin to see connections that others overlook. This is not for the purpose of judgment, but for understanding. Awareness of patterns helps a person protect their energy, communicate more clearly, and avoid unnecessary conflict. It also allows them to move through life with more confidence, because they are no longer surprised by every situation. They have seen the signs before, but now they recognize them. Observation is also a form of honesty. It requires seeing things exactly as they are, not as one wishes them to be. Many people avoid certain truths because they are uncomfortable, yet ignoring them only keeps life stuck. When someone looks directly at their habits, weaknesses, and strengths, they gain access to deeper layers of personal power. They notice how much time is wasted on meaningless distractions. They notice how often they speak from emotion instead of intention. They notice how frequently they deny themselves the discipline needed to grow. This kind of honest observation can feel uncomfortable at first, but it is the foundation of true change. When a person sees clearly, they cannot pretend anymore, and this pushes them toward better choices. To apply observation in daily life, the person can start with one simple practice: pause before reacting. This single habit opens space for awareness. When a message arrives, pause. When someone says something unexpected, pause. When frustration rises, pause. In that moment, observe the situation without jumping to conclusions. Notice the tone, the context, the intention behind the words. Notice the emotional signal inside the body. This practice helps the person avoid impulsive decisions and teaches them how to respond with clarity. The hidden layer revealed here is the difference between reacting from emotion and responding from awareness. Over time, this shift builds a sense of stability and confidence. Another practical step is to spend a short moment each day observing something ordinary in great detail. It can be the way sunlight enters the room, the sound of traffic outside, or the expression on someone's face. This strengthens the mind's ability to focus. The more the person trains their attention on small details, the easier it becomes to see deeper truths in complex situations. This is how observation sharpens intuition. Intuition is not magic. It is the result of noticing subtle cues that others miss. When the mind gathers enough of these cues, it produces clear insights that guide decisions. Writing observations down can also reveal hidden layers. When someone records what they noticed during the day, emotions, conversations, shifts in behavior, they start to see patterns they would never catch in real time. A person may realize they feel most anxious at the same time each day. They may notice they become frustrated after speaking with a certain person. They may recognize that their motivation rises after completing a certain type of task. These patterns create a map of personal behavior. With this map, the person can adjust their habits and environment to support their goals. Observation turns into transformation when it is tracked. Another layer revealed through observation is the difference between what is real and what the mind creates. Many problems come from assumptions, misunderstandings, and imagined outcomes that never happen. When someone observes their thoughts, they begin to recognize which ideas are facts and which are fears. This clarity reduces stress and prevents unnecessary emotional pain. When the person sees a worried thought appear, they can step back and ask whether it reflects the situation or just the mind's habit of preparing for danger. This brings emotional strength because it teaches the person not to believe everything the mind says. Observation also deepens gratitude. When someone notices small details, the smell of morning air, the warmth of a drink, the stability of their own breathing, they start to appreciate their life in a quiet, steady way. Gratitude formed through observation is grounding. It removes the need to constantly chase the next accomplishment to feel satisfied. Instead, satisfaction grows naturally from seeing what already exists. This is not complacency. It is clarity. When gratitude becomes consistent, the person becomes stronger, more disciplined, and more patient. Gratitude clears mental noise and makes space for better decisions. To strengthen observation further, the person can practice separating facts from interpretations. For example, if a friend replies with a short message, the fact is the message is short. The interpretation might be, they are upset with me. When someone trains themselves to see the difference, they avoid unnecessary stress. Observation brings them back to reality. They learn to ask questions instead of assuming answers. This helps them build healthier relationships and prevents emotional confusion. Observation also helps a person recognize opportunities that usually pass unnoticed. Many chances to improve life, whether through learning, connection, or progress, appear as small moments. A conversation overheard, a question asked by a stranger, a new responsibility at work, a feeling of curiosity. People who are constantly distracted miss these signs. Those who are observant catch them. These moments become turning points. Hidden layers often reveal themselves through small signals, not dramatic events. As observation grows, the person develops a steady presence that others can feel. This presence comes from being fully aware of where they are, what they are doing, and how they are influenced by the moment. People with strong observation are not easily overwhelmed. They notice their inner state and adjust before stress takes control. They notice external changes early and adapt before problems grow. This presence builds resilience and discipline. In the end, unlocking hidden layers through observation is about building a life guided by awareness instead of distraction. Each moment becomes a source of information. Each emotion becomes a signal. Each interaction becomes a lesson. The more someone pays attention, the more they understand themselves and the world. With understanding comes strength. With strength comes clarity. And with clarity comes the ability to move through life with purpose, peace, and confidence. Observation is the foundation that supports every dimension of growth, and the person who masters it gains access to a version of reality that was always there, waiting to be seen. Number 2. Train awareness to sense dimensions. Awareness grows when a person chooses to pay attention to what lies beneath the surface of everyday experience. Sensing deeper dimensions is not about escaping reality or turning life into something mystical. It is about sharpening the mind so clearly that subtle information becomes visible. Anyone who strengthens their awareness begins to notice connections, emotional undercurrents, and silent signals that shape each moment. This ability does not arrive suddenly. It is built through steady training, just like any skill that requires discipline and patience. When awareness becomes consistent, life feels more intentional, and decisions feel more aligned with what truly matters. Training awareness begins with understanding how easily the mind gets pulled away from the present moment. Distractions fill every part of modern life, from constant notifications to rushing thoughts. When the mind is scattered, it loses sensitivity. It cannot detect small shifts in mood, energy, or behavior. To develop a sharper sense of reality and its deeper layers, the person must learn how to return their attention to what is happening right now. This simple act strengthens the internal sense of presence. The first step is noticing when the mind drifts. The second step is guiding it back without frustration. Each time this happens, awareness grows stronger. Another part of cultivating awareness is observing the space between thoughts. Most people assume their thoughts define who they are, but they rarely question where these thoughts come from or how they influence decisions. When someone takes a moment to notice the quiet gaps between ideas, they begin to sense a deeper part of themselves. This calm space helps them see life without being pulled by fear, impulse, or habit. It creates room for clearer judgment. This is not an attempt to silence the mind. It is a practice of recognizing that thoughts are events, not commands. When awareness expands in this way, the person becomes more grounded. Awareness also sharpens when the senses are engaged with intention. Many people use their senses passively, noticing things only when they interrupt or overwhelm them. But when someone pays closer attention to sound, texture, temperature, and movement, the world feels more alive. For example, listening deeply to a conversation reveals more than the words being spoken. It reveals tone, pace, and emotional weight. Feeling the environment more consciously allows a person to notice subtle changes that signal shifts in energy or atmosphere. Sensory training builds sensitivity, and sensitivity reveals layers of experience that normally remain hidden. Another powerful way to strengthen awareness is by understanding emotional signals as information rather than inconveniences. Feelings often appear before logical understanding, acting as early indicators of change. A sudden uneasiness may point to something important. A sense of comfort may reveal alignment. Many people ignore these signals because they do not want to confront what they mean. But when someone watches their emotions with clarity, they start to sense deeper dimensions within themselves. They begin to understand what their inner state is trying to communicate. Emotional awareness gives access to intuition, and intuition guides decisions that match a wiser part of the mind. Awareness also grows when someone observes the people around them with patience instead of assumption. Every person expresses themselves through tiny actions, a brief pause, a quick glance, a shift in posture. When these signals are noticed, conversations take on more meaning. The person becomes better at understanding intentions, recognizing tension, and sensing harmony. This type of awareness creates stronger relationships because it reduces misunderstandings and increases empathy. It also helps the individual stay grounded in social situations, noticing when they need to hold their energy or when they can open up more fully. Training awareness to sense dimensions beyond the surface also involves recognizing the patterns of life As they unfold, events rarely happen without warning. Opportunities usually send quiet signs before they appear. Problems often show small cracks before they become heavy. When someone pays attention to these early patterns, they can take action sooner and with more confidence. This sense of rhythm gives life a feeling of flow. It helps the person move with situations instead of against them. Awareness built through pattern recognition creates a sense of inner guidance that feels reliable and steady. One of the most transformative forms of awareness training involves listening to the body. The body responds to situations faster than the conscious mind. A slight tightening in the chest, a shift in breathing, or a sudden burst of energy can provide insight before any thoughts arise. Most people overlook these signals because they focus only on the mind. But deeper dimensions of understanding often come from physical responses. When someone trains themselves to feel their body without judgment, they start to notice early signs of stress, excitement, or clarity. These signals help them choose better actions and avoid situations that drain their energy. Awareness can also be strengthened through short moments of intentional stillness throughout the day. These moments do not require long sessions or special conditions. Even a few seconds of pausing and paying attention can reset the mind. This practice helps the person break free from automatic habits. It sharpens perception and centers the mind in the present. Over time, these small pauses build mental endurance. They teach the brain how to stay focused without force. This creates a stable foundation for sensing subtle dimensions in daily life. Another valuable method for training awareness is examining personal judgments. Everyone carries biases and interpretations shaped by past experiences. These influences often block clear perception. When someone questions their assumptions, they open the door to deeper understanding. This does not mean doubting everything, but rather checking whether a reaction is based on the current moment or an old memory. When judgments are observed, they lose their power. Awareness becomes cleaner, allowing the person to see situations as they truly are instead of through the lens of past emotion. A person's environment also influences their awareness. A cluttered, noisy, chaotic space makes it difficult to sense anything beyond immediate distractions. But a space that supports clarity through order, calm, and intention helps the mind become more receptive. Changing the environment does not require perfection. Simple actions, such as clearing a table, adjusting lighting, or reducing unnecessary noise, can sharpen awareness. When the environment feels stable, the mind naturally follows. Awareness deepens further when the person practices focusing on one task at a time. Multitasking weakens attention and scatters energy. But when the person gives full presence to whatever they are doing, whether speaking, working, eating, or resting, the mind becomes sharper. Full attention strengthens sensitivity to details and increases mental strength. This practice builds discipline, and discipline enhances the ability to sense deeper layers of experience. Awareness training also involves noticing the inner voice that speaks when everything becomes quiet. This voice often carries guidance that is subtle but meaningful. It is not dramatic or loud. It is calm, steady, and direct. When someone creates space for this voice, they begin to trust their inner direction. This trust supports long-term growth and resilience. It helps the person stay aligned with their values even when life becomes difficult. Awareness opens this connection, and consistency strengthens it. As awareness grows, the person becomes more capable of navigating challenges with clarity instead of confusion. They recognize subtle shifts in their surroundings, understand their emotional landscape, and detect patterns that shape events. This ability gives them a sense of strength that does not rely on external circumstances. They become less reactive, more intentional, and more in touch with the deeper layers of their own mind. In this state, life feels more meaningful because they participate fully instead of moving through it automatically. Training awareness to sense deeper dimensions is a lifelong practice, but each day provides countless opportunities to strengthen it. With every moment of focus, every observation of emotion, every pause between thoughts, awareness expands. When awareness expands, the person gains access to a richer, more grounded experience of life. They see more, understand more, and feel more connected to their own path. This clarity becomes a guiding force, helping them move forward with purpose and resilience. Number 3. Document shifts in daily reality. Life is always changing, even in the small moments that seem ordinary. Most people move through their routines without noticing the quiet shifts that reveal how their thoughts, emotions, and choices evolve from one day to the next. Documenting these shifts is a way to understand the hidden movements inside daily life. It creates a record of growth, struggle, clarity, and confusion. This practice helps a person see what truly fuels their progress and what silently holds them back. When someone records these changes with honesty, they gain a clearer understanding of themselves, and that clarity becomes a powerful tool for transformation. Documenting daily shifts does not mean writing long explanations or perfect reflections. It is simply the act of noticing and recording what changes, even in small ways. A change in mood, a new thought, a different reaction to a familiar situation. All these subtle differences carry meaning. When someone begins to capture these moments, they start to notice patterns that were always present but never recognized. This awareness strengthens their ability to make intentional decisions because they are no longer blind to the forces shaping their behavior. One way to begin documenting shifts is to notice emotional transitions throughout the day. Emotions move like quiet tides, and each change carries information about needs, boundaries, and desires. For example, a sudden feeling of pressure might appear after a specific interaction. A sense of calm might rise when performing a certain task. By recording these emotional movements, the person starts to understand what supports their inner balance and what disrupts it. Over time, this record becomes a map that guides better choices. Instead of guessing what affects them, they see it clearly. Another meaningful shift to document is changes in physical energy. The body sends subtle signals about stress, motivation, rest, and readiness. Many people ignore these signals, pushing through exhaustion or missing moments of strength. When someone pays attention and records these changes, they begin to see how food, sleep, movement, and stress influence their day. This awareness helps them create routines that support long-term stability. They can avoid pushing themselves into burnout and make better use of moments when their mind and body are at their best. Documenting shifts also reveals how thoughts evolve. A thought that appears insignificant in the morning may turn into something meaningful later. Another thought might seem important at first but fade as the day goes on. When someone writes these thoughts down even briefly, they can trace the movement of their mind. This shows which thoughts deserve attention and which ones simply pass through without relevance. This practice strengthens mental clarity because it becomes easier to separate meaningful insights from temporary noise. Noticing shifts in behavior is another powerful form of documentation. A person might respond with patience to a situation they once found stressful. They may also notice moments when impatience rises unexpectedly. Recording these changes helps identify triggers and progress. It shows where discipline is growing and where reinforcement is needed. Without documentation, these small victories or setbacks disappear quickly. With documentation, they become lessons that shape the next day. Documenting daily shifts is also a way to observe how one's environment influences inner life. The surroundings change constantly: weather, noise, social interactions, responsibilities. These external elements affect mood and productivity in ways people often do not recognize. When someone records changes in their environment alongside changes in their inner state, they see connections that help them navigate life with more control. They can choose environments that support their well-being and reduce exposure to situations that drain them. Another area worth documenting is the subtle changes in perspective. A problem that seems heavy at one moment may feel manageable later. A task that once created resistance might begin to feel natural. These shifts often go unnoticed because they unfold gradually. When recorded, they show the development of resilience, patience, and strength. Perspective shifts are evidence of personal growth, and documenting them helps the person recognize how far they have come, even when progress feels slow. A helpful practice in documenting reality is capturing moments of clarity. These moments often appear unexpectedly. They may arrive during a conversation, while resting, or while completing a simple task. When these brief insights are written down, they serve as reminders of what the person truly wants and what matters most. These insights often guide important decisions later on. Without documentation, they can fade quickly, replaced by daily demands and distractions. Additionally, documenting reality includes observing how routines shift. Small changes in habits, whether helpful or unhelpful, shape long-term outcomes. A missed morning practice might seem minor, but if it repeats, it becomes a pattern. A moment of discipline repeated across days becomes a foundation. Recording these changes helps the individual understand how habits form and how they can consciously shape them. This practice strengthens discipline because it brings structure and direction to daily life. A meaningful part of documenting daily shifts is recognizing when one acts from intention versus when one acts from impulse. Many people repeat behaviors without understanding why they do them. When someone records what motivates their actions, they begin to see the difference between choices made with clarity and those made out of habit. This awareness reduces self-sabotage because it becomes easier to catch unhelpful patterns before they grow stronger. Documenting shifts also helps someone stay grounded during challenging moments. During stress, the mind often exaggerates problems or believes they will last indefinitely. But when the person looks back at previous entries, they see that difficult moments pass, fears fade, and clarity returns. This reminder brings stability. It prevents the mind from falling into unnecessary despair and encourages patience during uncertainty. Another powerful benefit of documentation is tracking subtle improvements. Growth rarely appears dramatically. It comes through small changes that build over time. Without a record, these changes may go unnoticed, and the person may feel stuck even while progressing. Documentation reveals steady advancement. It shows new strengths forming and old patterns weakening. This gives the person encouragement to continue their path with confidence. Documenting daily reality also trains the mind to be more attentive. When someone knows they will record the day's shifts, they naturally observe more closely. This strengthens awareness throughout the day, creating a cycle of clarity and reflection. The more someone documents, the more they notice. The more they notice, the more they understand themselves. This understanding supports emotional stability and personal power. A person can document shifts in many simple ways. They can write a few sentences at the end of the day, record quick notes on a phone, or reflect during brief pauses. What matters is consistency. The goal is not perfection, but honesty. Even short entries accumulate into a wealth of insight. Over time, this record becomes a mirror that shows the person who they are becoming. It reveals how life influences them and how they influence life in return. Documenting shifts in daily reality is not just a habit. It is a method of understanding one's inner world. It brings hidden movements into the open. It transforms confusion into clarity. It turns ordinary days into sources of learning. Through this practice, the person gains a deeper sense of control, awareness, and direction. They become more grounded, more observant, and more connected to their own growth. This consistent self-reflection opens doors to insight that would otherwise remain unseen, guiding them toward a more intentional and empowered life. Number 4, challenge assumptions to reveal truth. Every person carries assumptions that shape how they see themselves, others, and the world around them. These assumptions form quietly, often without awareness, built from past experiences, opinions, fears, and expectations. Over time, these unexamined beliefs can become invisible walls that limit understanding. Challenging them is not about rejecting everything one knows, but about questioning the thoughts that appear automatically and checking whether they reflect truth or habit. When someone learns to challenge their assumptions, they open space for deeper clarity. This clarity reveals what is real, what is imagined, and what has been accepted without thought. The more someone questions, the more they understand themselves and the environment they move through. Challenging assumptions begins with noticing how quickly the mind reaches conclusions. When faced with a situation, the mind often fills in details before evidence appears. A friend's silence is assumed to signal anger. A difficult task is assumed to be impossible. A new idea is assumed to be irrelevant. These assumptions create emotional reactions that feel justified, even when they rest on nothing more than guesswork. The first step in revealing truth is recognizing when the mind jumps ahead. The person must pause and observe the assumptions forming beneath their reactions. This pause creates room to question whether the belief is based on fact or fear. Another important part of challenging assumptions is examining the stories one tells about themselves. Many people carry old statements that quietly restrict their potential, beliefs about what they can or cannot do, what they deserve, or what they are capable of becoming. These statements often come from past experiences or the influence of others. When left unchallenged, they shape decisions and limit opportunities. A person may avoid taking risks because they assume they will fail. They may ignore chances for growth because they assume they are not ready. They may accept unhappiness because they assume change is impossible. When someone questions these internal statements, they begin to see how much of their identity has been shaped by unquestioned beliefs. This realization brings freedom because they can replace limiting assumptions with clearer, more grounded understanding. Challenging assumptions also involves questioning how one interprets the behavior of others. People often assume they know someone's intentions based on tone, expression, or past interactions. These interpretations may feel accurate, but they are often shaped by personal bias or emotional state. When someone takes the time to examine their assumptions about others, they prevent misunderstandings and reduce unnecessary conflict. Instead of assuming hurt, they consider alternative explanations. Instead of assuming rejection, they check for clarity. This practice strengthens communication and builds healthier relationships because truth becomes more important than guesswork. Another powerful way to reveal truth is questioning expectations. Expectations shape perception. If someone expects disappointment, they will notice only signs that confirm it. If they expect failure, they will see challenges as confirmation of their belief. Expectations can trap the mind in a cycle where it only sees what it anticipates. To break this cycle, the person must question what they expect and why. Do they base their expectations on evidence, or do they simply repeat old patterns? When expectations are examined honestly, they lose their power to distort perspective. The person begins to see situations with more neutrality, and this opens space for new possibility. Challenging assumptions also requires courage. The mind holds on to familiar beliefs because they create a sense of stability, even when they limit growth. Letting go of these beliefs can feel uncomfortable because it forces the person to face uncertainty. But truth often lives behind the assumptions that feel safest. When someone steps into this discomfort, they discover new strength. They stop relying on assumptions to protect them and start relying on clarity. This shift builds resilience because they learn to face reality directly instead of hiding behind predictable explanations. Another way to challenge assumptions is by asking direct questions during moments of confusion. Instead of accepting the first explanation that appears in the mind, the person can ask themselves whether their belief matches the facts. They can question whether their reaction fits the situation. They can examine whether their emotions are driven by the present moment or by past experiences resurfacing. These questions bring the mind out of automatic patterns and into conscious awareness. With each question, truth becomes easier to recognize. Observing daily reactions also helps uncover assumptions. When someone pays attention to what triggers frustration, fear, or hesitation, they can identify the beliefs behind those reactions. For example, if they feel defensive during a certain conversation, they can explore whether they assumed judgment where none existed. If they feel anxious about a new responsibility, they can challenge the assumption that they are unprepared. This practice allows them to separate reality from interpretation and respond with more confidence. Challenging assumptions also strengthens problem solving. Many challenges seem unsolvable because the person assumes the situation is fixed. When these assumptions are questioned, new approaches become visible. A task that seemed overwhelming becomes manageable when the person challenges the belief that they must do everything at once. A conflict that felt impossible to resolve becomes clear when the person challenges the belief that the other side cannot change. This mindset opens pathways that once seemed blocked. Another aspect of revealing truth is examining assumptions about the world. People often adopt beliefs about society, opportunity, and fairness without questioning them. These beliefs influence how they pursue goals and how they react to obstacles. When someone investigates these assumptions, they begin to see how many of them are inherited rather than chosen. This awareness allows them to move through life with more independence, forming beliefs based on their own experience, rather than simply repeating what they have absorbed from others. The process of challenging assumptions also builds humility. It teaches the person that their first impression is not always accurate, and that there is value in questioning themselves. This humility does not weaken them. It strengthens their ability to adapt. They become more open to learning, more willing to adjust their perspective, and more capable of understanding others. Humility fosters growth because it keeps the mind flexible and receptive to truth. Over time, challenging assumptions becomes a natural part of thinking. The mind stops accepting easy explanations and begins searching for clarity. This creates a deeper sense of stability. Instead of relying on rigid beliefs, the person relies on observation and understanding. They become less reactive, more thoughtful, and more aligned with reality. Truth becomes something they actively uncover rather than something they assume they already know. The person who consistently challenges their assumptions becomes more aware of their inner world. They recognize how their beliefs shape their actions. They notice how interpretations influence emotions. They see how expectations influence outcomes. With this awareness, they begin to make choices with intention instead of habit. They move through life with a clearer understanding of themselves and others. They rely less on automatic thoughts and more on insight. Challenging assumptions is a lifelong discipline. Each day offers new chances to question what feels familiar and look deeper into what is real. With each assumption challenged, the person uncovers a layer of truth that brings more strength, balance, and understanding. This practice reveals not only the truth about the world, but also the truth about oneself. From that truth comes the power to make wiser choices, build stronger relationships, and live with greater purpose. Number 5. Strengthen intuition with quiet practice. Intuition grows when you give yourself the room to slow down and listen to what usually gets ignored. Quiet practice is not about escaping life. It's about creating a simple moment where your inner signals can finally be heard without being drowned out by loud thoughts or pressure. You start by sitting in a comfortable place, somewhere that feels safe enough for your mind to stop scanning for distractions. Pay attention to how your body feels, not with judgment, but with a gentle curiosity. Notice the weight of your hands, the way your breath moves through your chest, and the change in your heartbeat when your attention settles. These small details help your mind shift from reactive thinking to a calmer state where intuition can surface more easily. Let yourself stay with this stillness long enough to feel the difference between tension and clarity. Many people expect intuition to arrive like a dramatic message. In reality, it usually shows up as a soft pull, a quiet nudge that becomes more noticeable when you stop rushing. As you remain in silence, try to let your thoughts drift through without grabbing onto them. Each time your mind wanders, you gently guide it back to your breath. This simple action trains your attention to stay steady, making it easier to detect the subtle impressions that arise from your inner awareness. After a few minutes, you might feel a slight shift inside you. It can feel like a calm wave or a softened mood. Use that moment to ask yourself a simple question, something you genuinely want clarity on. Don't push for an immediate response. Instead, allow the answer to form in its own time. Intuition doesn't like pressure. It prefers open space. You may notice a feeling, a quiet sense of yes or no, or even a picture or idea that appears gently in your mind. Whatever comes, acknowledge it without forcing it to become something bigger. This makes your mind trust the process and encourages more intuitive moments to surface. Quiet practice also teaches you to separate fear-based thoughts from genuine inner signals. Fear feels tight, urgent, and noisy. Intuitive guidance feels steady, patient, and softer. The more time you spend in silence, the easier it becomes to tell the difference. Reflect on your reactions throughout the day. When you notice yourself feeling pulled towards something without knowing why, pause for a moment and check how your body responds. If you feel a light sense of ease, even slightly, that's often your intuition. If your chest tightens or your thoughts race, that's usually your inner alarm reacting to worry rather than truth. Consistency matters. 5 minutes of quiet practice each day will shift your awareness more than one long session. Once a week, these daily moments train your mind to return to calmness quickly. They also help you build trust with yourself, which is essential for intuitive growth. When you trust your observations, you don't need everything to make perfect sense right away. You learn to follow what feels aligned and let understanding come later. As you continue this practice, try incorporating simple sensory details to deepen the experience. Focus on the temperature of the air on your skin. Listen for faint sounds you usually ignore. Pay attention to the subtle scents around you. These sensory anchors help your attention ground itself, creating a stable inner environment. Intuition becomes clearer when your senses work together rather than pulling your mind in different directions. Keep a small notebook nearby. After each session, write down anything you felt, even if it seems unclear. You may begin to notice patterns. Maybe your body responds the same way whenever a particular idea is right for you. Maybe certain sensations appear when something is not. These repeated cues become a personal language between your conscious mind and your intuitive awareness. By recording them, you strengthen the connection and make it easier to recognize the signals in daily life. Quiet practice is not limited to sitting still. You can use it while walking slowly, feeling the ground with each step. You can practice it while drinking warm tea, noticing each sip without rushing. You can even try it before making decisions, giving yourself a moment where everything becomes quiet enough for your inner sense to guide you. Each time you slow down and listen, you reinforce the path that connects your everyday awareness to your deeper intuition. Over time, you may notice that intuitive signals appear even when you're not trying. You might suddenly understand a situation more clearly, or feel a strong sense of direction when faced with uncertainty. This happens because you've trained your mind to stay open, calm, and receptive. You've built a habit of listening instead of reacting. You've created a space inside yourself where clarity has room to emerge. You'll also become more sensitive to the small shifts in your emotions. Intuition often communicates through feelings rather than words. A gentle discomfort may warn you to slow down. A warm sense of ease may tell you that a choice aligns with your deeper values. When you learn to trust these internal cues, you stop relying on external validation. Instead, you begin making decisions that feel right on a deeper level. The more you practice, the more your intuition blends naturally into your daily actions. You won't have to force anything. Quiet practice becomes part of your rhythm, supporting you in moments of stress and helping you stay steady when life becomes overwhelming. It gives you a reliable inner compass that works even when everything around you feels uncertain. Intuition grows in the spaces you create for it. When you choose silence, you choose clarity. When you choose presence, you choose understanding. Quiet practice is a simple doorway, but once you step through it, you discover how much guidance was waiting for you all along. Number 6. Study symbols to decode patterns. Symbols are everywhere, even in the moments you consider ordinary, and when you learn how to read them, they reveal patterns you never noticed before. You don't need to treat symbols like something mystical or distant. Think of them as small clues that help you understand the deeper structure of your thoughts, choices, and experiences. When you begin studying symbols with intention, you start noticing how certain shapes, images, or repeating signs appear in your daily life and carry meaning that connects directly to your inner world. Begin by choosing a few symbols that you feel naturally drawn to. This could be anything: an animal that keeps showing up, a number you see often, a shape that seems to follow you, or a dream image that stays with you longer than expected. Sit with these symbols and try to understand why they stand out. Look at the emotions they bring up. Pay attention to where you see them and how they make you feel. This initial curiosity helps you form a personal connection, which is essential because symbolic meaning becomes clearer when it relates to your lived experience rather than abstract definition. Once you've gathered a few symbols, keep track of them in a small notebook. Write down each moment they appear. Include the environment, how you felt at the time, and what you were thinking about. Over days and weeks, patterns begin to surface, not because the symbols changed, but because you finally gave yourself the chance to observe them without dismissing them as coincidences. You might notice that certain symbols appear when you're stressed or when you're making progress on something important. These connections reveal how your inner state shapes the world around you and how external signs reflect your internal process. It helps to explore the history or cultural background of your symbols, not to restrict their meaning, but to add depth to your understanding. Many symbols have been studied for centuries. Their interpretations can offer insight into what the human mind has associated with them through time. For example, different shapes have long been linked to specific qualities: circles with unity, triangles with direction, spirals with evolution. When you learn these associations, you give yourself more tools to interpret the patterns you observe, but always remember that your experience is the main guide. A symbol becomes alive when it speaks to you personally. As you continue this study, try practicing slow observation. Pick an object with symbolic value and look at it closely for a few minutes. Notice the details, the edges, textures, colors, and the feeling it brings up in your body. This quiet examination strengthens your ability to read deeper meaning. Symbols communicate through subtle impressions, so training your senses to be patient and attentive makes you more capable of decoding what they express. Symbols also appear in your dreams, and dream symbols often carry clear messages once you understand how they connect to your waking life. Keep a journal near your bed and write down any dream elements you remember, no matter how unusual they seem. Over time, you'll see that certain images repeat. These dream symbols tend to point toward emotions or choices you haven't fully acknowledged. When you take the time to interpret them, they help you understand what you need to adjust, avoid, or embrace in your everyday life. If you want to deepen this practice even more, set aside a short moment each day to reflect on the symbols that appeared in the last 24 hours. Think about what they could be trying to show you. Ask yourself simple questions. What was I feeling when I saw this? What was happening around me? Does this symbol connect to something I've been avoiding or something I want to move toward? These questions help you uncover meaning that stays hidden when you rush through life without paying attention. To make this practice even more effective, choose one symbol each week to explore deeply. Focus on how it shows up in conversations, art, objects, and even in your thoughts. You'll begin to notice patterns you missed before, and those patterns will tell you something about your direction, your habits, and your emotional state. By studying a symbol consistently, you gain insight into how it shapes your decision. This kind of focused attention turns symbols from simple images into powerful guides. Another useful approach is to compare different symbols when they appear together. Sometimes 2 or 3 signs show up around the same time, and their combination reveals a message that neither symbol would express alone. When you pay attention to how they interact, you begin to understand the larger pattern they form. This mirrors the way your thoughts interact and influence your actions, giving you a deeper view into how your inner world operates. Symbols can also help you understand relationships and communication. Notice how people around you use certain objects, gestures, or expressions repeatedly. These small symbolic actions often show you what they value, what they fear, or what they hope for. You don't need to analyze anyone harshly. Simply noticing these patterns builds your understanding of others and improves how you connect with them. Over time, you start recognizing symbolic expressions everywhere in body language, in decor, in the way people choose their words. If you ever feel lost in your symbolic study, return to your senses. Feel the symbol in a physical way. Hold it if possible. Draw it or visualize it with your eyes closed. Feeling a symbol through sensation helps anchor its meaning so your interpretation becomes grounded instead of abstract. When you connect the symbol with your sensory experience, you start understanding it as part of your reality instead of something distant. One of the strongest effects of studying symbols is the way it sharpens your ability to see repeating structures in your life. You begin recognizing when certain experiences follow the same emotional pattern or when familiar situations appear with a new face. This awareness empowers you to break old cycles, make clearer choices, and move toward what feels right instead of repeating habits that no longer serve you. Symbols highlight these cycles, and once you see them, you gain the freedom to shift your direction. As you continue, your mind becomes more comfortable with subtle meaning. You learn to trust the quiet signs instead of waiting for something dramatic. You also begin feeling more connected to your decisions, because they're guided not just by logic, but by a deeper understanding of the patterns shaping your life. Studying symbols helps you see that nothing is random. Every moment carries a small message, and every pattern reflects something within you. When you approach symbols with patience, honesty, and curiosity, They give you insights that support your growth. You start noticing the structure behind your thoughts. You become more aware of how small signs influence your choices. You begin understanding your own mind on a deeper level. Through this practice, symbols become a bridge between your conscious awareness and the deeper patterns shaping your reality. Number 7. Test perceptions using controlled focus. Training your perception begins by understanding how easily the mind jumps to conclusions without checking whether those impressions are accurate. Most people move through life relying on automatic reactions, believing the first interpretation that rises in their thoughts. This habit feels natural because it saves effort, but it also blocks deeper awareness. Controlled focus is the skill that helps you break this pattern. It gives you a steady inner position from which you can test what you see, hear, and feel instead of accepting everything at face value. When you practice this consistently, your perception becomes sharper, calmer, and far more reliable. Controlled focus doesn't mean forcing your attention in a harsh way. It's more like steadying your inner lens so it stops shaking. Think of the moments when you feel overwhelmed or confused. Your thoughts scatter, your senses tighten, and you react before you investigate what's really happening. With controlled focus, you pause long enough to examine the situation with clarity. You create a small space between stimulus and response, and inside that space, your perception can expand. That pause becomes a powerful tool for uncovering the truth instead of acting based on assumptions. Start with simple exercises. Choose an object in front of you and give it your full attention for a moment. Notice the surface, the shape, the shadows, and any small marks you usually overlook. Most people think they already see everything, but when they slow down, they realize how much they missed. The point of this exercise is not the object itself, but the discipline of keeping your attention stable. The longer you hold that focus, the more you train your mind to resist drifting. This practice may feel basic, but it builds the foundation for testing perception in more complex areas of life. Once you develop the habit of steady observation, take the same discipline into your emotions. When you feel irritation, sadness, or excitement, try directing a controlled focus toward that feeling. Instead of being pulled by it, examine it. Ask yourself what caused it, what part of your body reacts first, and whether the intensity makes sense. This simple examination often exposes misunderstanding. For example, a small comment may feel offensive at first, but when you observe your reaction closely, you may notice your mind was already tense before the moment happened. Testing your perception this way prevents you from reacting based on mood or habit, and it strengthens your emotional resilience. To go even further, test your perceptions by isolating one sense at a time. Sit still for a minute and focus only on sound. Notice each layer, near, far, constant, fading, then shift to temperature, then to your breath, then to the feeling of your hands resting where they are. This method sharpens your sensory awareness and reveals how often your mind blends sensations together without understanding them separately. When you can distinguish each sense clearly, your perception becomes less chaotic and more structured. A powerful way to test perception is to challenge your expectations. Most people see what they expect to see, not what is actually there. For example, when meeting someone new, you might form an impression within seconds, and after that, everything they say or do appears to confirm what you already decided. Controlled focus interrupts this reflex. When you notice yourself jumping to a conclusion, pause and ask whether the conclusion came from observation or assumption. This habit helps you avoid misjudging people and situations. It also opens the possibility of perceiving qualities you might have overlooked because you assumed you already understood everything. Another practice involves observing your thoughts like an outsider. Sit quietly and notice the ideas that rise in your mind. Don't push them away or engage with them. Simply watch them form, shift, and dissolve. This simple act reveals how quickly thoughts appear without your intention. When you see how spontaneous they are, you begin to understand why first impressions can be misleading. Testing perception requires separating what you choose to believe from what your mind automatically produces. With enough practice, you'll recognize the difference instantly. Controlled focus also applies to your daily decisions. Before choosing something important, Step back and check whether your perception is clear. Ask yourself whether you're influenced by fear, impatience, or unrealistic hopes. These emotional states distort perception without your awareness. When you bring them into the light, they lose their grip. This discipline helps you make decisions that align with truth, not impulse. It also prevents regret because you act from clarity instead of confusion. If you want to strengthen this skill further, try examining your reactions in real time. When someone says something unexpected, instead of responding immediately, observe your internal shift. Notice the tightening in your chest, the change in your breathing, or the rush of thoughts trying to form an answer. Controlled focus allows you to pause for a moment and check whether your reaction reflects the reality of the situation or a habit from the past. This ability turns ordinary interactions into opportunities for growth. A deeper level of testing perception involves questioning the stories you tell yourself. Everyone builds silent narratives about who they are, what their life means, and what other people think about them. These stories feel true because they've been repeated internally for years, but many of them are incomplete or exaggerated. Controlled focus gives you the strength to examine these stories and check whether they match the fact. For example, if you believe you are not capable of something, test that belief by looking at your actual experiences. You may find moments where you succeeded because you tried, not because you were sure. When you test these inner stories with a calm, steady mind, you begin freeing yourself from limitations that were never real. Another powerful exercise is deliberately changing focus when your perception becomes narrow. When you fixate on one problem, everything else fades, and the problem feels bigger than it truly is. Controlled focus teaches you how to widen your awareness. Look at the entire context instead of one detail. When you shift perspective this way, you often see that the problem is not as overwhelming as it seemed, or that you have more options than you realized. This ability protects your mind from unnecessary stress and keeps you grounded during difficult moments. Testing perception also requires paying attention to subtle signals. Sometimes your intuition notices something before your conscious mind does, and you feel a slight pull or discomfort without knowing why. Controlled focus helps you explore these signals calmly instead of dismissing them. Look at your surroundings, your thoughts, and the emotional tone of the moment. You may discover a detail you overlooked or a boundary you didn't recognize. This practice increases your self-understanding and helps you navigate situations with greater intelligence. Over time, controlled focus becomes less of an exercise and more of a natural state. You begin observing the world with a quiet steadiness that keeps you present. You no longer rush to conclusions, and you no longer believe every impression that passes through your mind. You develop a balanced form of perception that blends sensitivity with discipline. This balance lets you see reality with greater purity, and it gives you the strength to respond with wisdom instead of impulse. The more you test your perceptions, the more stable your mind becomes. You gain confidence because your understanding of situations is grounded in clarity rather than guesswork. You feel more calm because your reactions no longer control you. You develop resilience because you see the truth of situations rather than fearing what might be. Controlled focus is not about trying to control everything around you. It's about controlling the one thing you can, the way you direct your attention. When you master that, you open the door to a deeper form of awareness that transforms your experience of the world and strengthens your ability to navigate life with purpose and inner stability. Number 8. Align thoughts with deeper principles. Living with clarity begins when your thoughts stop wandering without direction and start following principles that give your life structure and meaning. Many people move through their days reacting to whatever shows up, letting emotions or habits guide them without questioning whether those patterns reflect their deeper values. When your thoughts drift like that, it becomes easy to feel lost, pressured, or unsure of who you are becoming. Aligning your thoughts with deeper principles brings your mind back to a steady center. It allows you to act with intention instead of impulse, and it gives every choice you make a sense of purpose that you can feel in your chest, not just understand with your mind. To start this alignment, take a moment to identify a few principles that truly matter to you. These are not trends or borrowed beliefs. They're qualities you know are worth building your life around: honesty, discipline, patience, courage, compassion, responsibility, or something else that resonates with who you want to become. When you choose these principles deliberately, they act like quiet anchors that guide your thoughts when everything else feels uncertain. You give yourself a stable reference point, and that stability reduces confusion, emotional turbulence, and pointless worry. Once you choose your principles, begin noticing how often your thoughts drift away from them. You might believe patience is important, yet your mind sparks irritation the moment something takes longer than expected. You might value honesty, yet you catch yourself exaggerating to avoid discomfort. These small contradictions reveal how untrained the mind truly is. Instead of judging yourself, use these moments as opportunities to steer your thoughts back toward the principles you chose. Each time you redirect your thinking, you strengthen your mental discipline and make the principle feel more natural in your daily life. A helpful method is to practice short moments of mental grounding throughout the day. Pause for a few seconds and silently ask yourself whether your current thoughts reflect your chosen principles. If you're thinking with clarity, you'll feel a sense of steadiness. If you're caught in anxiety, frustration, or overthinking, you'll feel tension in your body. That tension is a signal that your mind has drifted. Bring your attention back to a principle that suits the moment. For example, if you feel overwhelmed, return to patience. If you feel scattered, return to discipline. If you feel guarded, return to honesty. This habit turns principles into mental tools instead of abstract ideals. Aligning your thoughts also means recognizing and releasing ideas that have no real foundation. Many thoughts come from fear, past experiences, or assumptions that aren't even true anymore. When you align yourself with deeper principles, you give yourself permission to let go of these old mental patterns. If a thought makes you feel small or incapable, test it against your principles. If it doesn't support them, it doesn't deserve your attention. This kind of mental filtering removes a lot of unnecessary noise and frees up space for clearer thinking. Another step is learning to act as the observer of your thoughts, rather than letting them control you. When a principle becomes your focus, you begin to notice which thoughts rise from insecurity and which thoughts rise from strength. This distinction changes the way you react to situations. Instead of following every emotional impulse, you choose the thought that aligns with your values. Over time, this becomes second nature. You start making decisions that match the person you aspire to be, not the person you used to be when you lacked direction. A powerful exercise involves connecting your principles to your physical experiences. When your thoughts drift into worry or frustration, your body often responds with tension. When your thoughts align with steadier principles, your body relaxes, your breathing deepens, and your mind feels clearer. Paying attention to this connection helps you understand how thoughts influence your entire state of being. It also gives you a practical way to return to alignment. If you feel your chest tighten or your breath shorten, take a moment to shift your thoughts toward a principle you trust. To strengthen alignment even more, set aside a few minutes at the end of each day to reflect on how well your thoughts matched your principles. Think about situations where you stayed aligned and moments where you drifted. This reflection is not about harsh judgment, it's about awareness. Another useful approach is simplifying your mental space. When you remove distractions, unnecessary commitments, and meaningless noise, deeper principles naturally rise to the surface. Too much clutter, mental or physical, weakens your ability to stay aligned. Create a quiet moment each day where you step away from noise and allow your mind to settle. In that stillness, your principles feel more real, and your thoughts become easier to direct. This practice strengthens your inner sense of order and gives you a renewed sense of purpose. Aligning your thoughts with principles also improves your relationships. When your mind is anchored in honesty or patience, you listen more deeply, speak more carefully, and avoid unnecessary conflict. You become more understanding because you're no longer reacting from ego or insecurity. Others begin to feel more at ease around you, not because you try to impress them, but because your presence carries stability. This stability comes from the discipline of choosing principles over emotions and clarity over impulse. There may be times when your principles get challenged, moments of stress, conflict, or disappointment. These moments test the strength of your alignment. When they arrive, slow down. Don't let urgency push you away from your values. Instead, return to the principle that best supports the situation. If you respond with clarity rather than emotion, you maintain control of your inner state even when the external world feels uncertain. This is the essence of aligning thoughts with deeper principles, remaining centered while everything around you shifts. When your thoughts consistently match your deeper principles, you no longer need to search endlessly for meaning. You create meaning through the way you think, speak, and act. This gives you a quiet strength that follows you everywhere. Number 9. Track energetic changes during reflection. Every person carries an invisible current that influences how they think, feel, and act. This current is the flow of energy within the body and mind, subtle yet powerful, and often overlooked. Begin by creating a quiet space where you can be undisturbed. Sit comfortably and close your eyes, focusing on your natural rhythm of breathing. Notice the sensations moving through your body: tension, relaxation, warmth, or coolness. Pay attention to how energy rises and falls in response to thoughts and memories. These shifts are subtle signals that reveal your internal state more accurately than words alone. They show what excites, energizes, or drains you, and they provide guidance for your actions moving forward. Keep a journal nearby to record observations. Note the times when energy rises, drops, or shifts unexpectedly. Include the context, what you were thinking about, how your body responded, and the intensity of the feeling. Over time, these records reveal patterns that are otherwise invisible. You may notice that certain tasks drain your energy, while others consistently elevate it. You might identify people, conversations, or environments that influence your flow in subtle ways. Documenting these insights turns abstract experiences into tangible knowledge you can act upon. One way to deepen this practice is to pair reflection with breath awareness. Each inhale brings energy into your body. Each exhale releases what no longer serves you. When you track energetic changes in this way, you begin to notice fluctuations that align with emotional or mental shifts. For example, a thought of anticipation may create a quickening sensation in your chest, while a thought of regret may cause a sinking feeling in your stomach. Recognizing these patterns gives you a clearer map of how energy interacts with your consciousness and decision. Another aspect of tracking energy is noticing its flow in different parts of the body. Many people feel energy as vibrations or temperature changes in specific areas. Your head may feel heavy during overthinking, your chest may tighten under stress, or your hands may tingle when excited. These physical manifestations are direct reflections of your inner state. By tracking them consistently, you learn to read the body as a compass for your mind. You begin to see where energy is blocked, where it flows freely, and how these patterns influence your daily life. Energy tracking also enhances emotional intelligence. When you notice how energy shifts during reflection, you become aware of subtle emotions that often go unnoticed. Small irritations, fleeting excitement, or quiet relief all carry energetic signatures. Recognizing these shifts allows you to respond intentionally rather than react automatically. You develop a deeper understanding of why you feel certain ways and how your energy affects interactions, decisions, and problem solving. This awareness gives you more control over your experiences and relationships. Consistency is key. Like any skill, observing and tracking energetic changes improves with regular practice. Begin with 5 or 10 minutes daily, gradually extending as your sensitivity grows. The more you practice, the easier it becomes to detect shifts before they escalate into stress, tension, or emotional imbalance. Early detection allows you to make small corrections, taking a deep breath, pausing before responding, or adjusting your focus to restore equilibrium. This proactive approach transforms reflection from passive thought into an active tool for self-mastery. Pay attention to subtle cues in your environment that influence energy. Lights, sound, temperature, and even colors can shift your internal state. During reflection, notice how these external factors interact with your inner flow. Some environments may create a sense of expansion and clarity, while others may cause tension or distraction. Understanding this interaction helps you arrange your surroundings to support energy balance. It also reveals how much external circumstances silently shape your inner experience, giving you the power to adjust consciously. Tracking energetic changes also sharpens intuition. Many intuitive insights arrive first as energetic shifts rather than clear thoughts. A sudden sense of discomfort, lightness, or focus often signals what your subconscious already knows. By noticing these signals, you become more attuned to your inner guidance and can act on it with confidence. The more you practice observing energy, the more reliable your intuitive responses become, and the less you rely solely on analytical reasoning to make decisions. Another valuable dimension of this practice is recognizing cycles of energy. Energy naturally rises and falls throughout the day. By noting these fluctuations, you can align tasks, reflection, and decisions with periods of higher focus and vitality. Challenging tasks are better approached when energy is elevated, while introspection and rest are best during slower moments. This synchronization improves efficiency, reduces frustration, and makes reflection more productive. Over time, you develop an intuitive sense of when to act, pause, or redirect your focus based on energetic patterns. Reflection combined with energy tracking also encourages resilience. When challenges arise, you begin to notice the first signs of tension or depletion before they dominate your experience. Early recognition allows for timely adjustments, breathing, movement, or mental reframing that prevent overwhelm. You learn to manage energy rather than letting it control you, building strength and adaptability. This practice fosters a deeper connection with your inner self and increases the capacity to remain grounded in stressful situations. As this skill matures, you'll notice a seamless integration between mind, body, and intuition. Energy tracking creates a dynamic feedback loop. Reflection informs awareness. Awareness guides action, and action shapes energy. This cycle empowers you to live intentionally, respond wisely, and sustain focus. You become more conscious of how every thought, emotion, and choice affects your energetic state, and you can use that knowledge to shape your reality. Daily reflection becomes more than a habit. It becomes a form of self-mastery. Ultimately, tracking energetic changes during reflection transforms how you navigate life. You move from reaction to presence, from scattered awareness to deliberate engagement. You understand the subtle currents guiding your behavior, and you can harness them to create clarity, purpose, and balance. Energy becomes a language you can read, interpret, and direct, turning each moment into an opportunity for growth. Through this practice, reflection is no longer passive. It becomes an active, powerful tool that reveals truth, builds resilience, and strengthens the connection between your inner self and the world around you. Number 10. Apply teachings to reshape experience. Every lesson you encounter in life holds potential far beyond the moment it arrives. Knowledge without action remains dormant, like seeds scattered on barren soil. To truly transform your existence, it is essential to take the teachings you receive, whether from books, mentors, experience, or intuition, and consciously apply them to reshape your daily reality. Life responds to how you use understanding. If you integrate lessons into your choices, your energy, and your habits, each day begins to reflect growth rather than repetition. Transformation is not abstract. It is the consistent application of insight to action. Begin by identifying the most meaningful teachings you've absorbed recently. These might be strategies for clarity, principles for patience, or insights into your own behavior. Rather than treating them as abstract ideas, ask yourself, how can this apply right now, in my current life? Application requires intentionality. It is easy to read or listen to wisdom and feel satisfied temporarily, but lasting change happens when thought moves into practice. Choose one principle at a time and focus your attention on it throughout the day. If the teaching is about patience, notice every moment when your impulse urges you to react immediately and consciously choose the patient response. If it is about honesty, examine where you might bend truths out of comfort and correct your course. Each conscious effort strengthens the connection between knowledge and lived experience. Observing results is essential. Applying teachings is not simply following steps mechanically. It is about noticing how your choices influence your energy, your perception, and your interactions. When you act according to insight, pay attention to subtle shifts. Your body may feel lighter. Your mind may feel calmer. Your conversations may flow more smoothly. These small indicators reveal the power of integration. Tracking them reinforces the habit and strengthens your understanding of cause and effect in your own life. reflection amplifies transformation. After acting on a teaching, take a few moments to consider what worked and what didn't. Did the principle influence your behavior the way you anticipated? Did it uncover hidden resistance or bias? Integration also requires flexibility. Life is unpredictable, and rigid application of a teaching can lead to frustration. True mastery lies in adapting principles to the nuances of each situation. The same lesson may manifest differently depending on context, people involved, or your own energy. For example, a principle about maintaining composure might require silence in one scenario and a firm verbal stance in another. Being adaptable ensures that teachings shape reality rather than being confined to abstract ideas or rigid routines. Consistency matters more than intensity. You do not need dramatic changes to reshape your experience. Small, repeated actions build cumulative power. Applying a principle consistently in minor interactions eventually transforms how you respond to major challenges. Life is a series of small choices. Each application is a deliberate stitch in the fabric of your character. Over time, these stitches create resilience, clarity, and coherence between your values and your actions. Energy plays a critical role in applying teachings effectively. When your body, mind, and emotions are aligned with the principle you intend to practice, its effect multiplies. Observe your internal state before acting. If you feel scattered, tense, or distracted, pause and realign with your intention. Breath, posture, and focus can anchor you in the right energy to ensure that the teaching translates into effective action. The way you carry yourself amplifies the impact of what you apply. Application also benefits from accountability, either internal or external. Journaling about how you implement principles, setting reminders, or sharing insights with a trusted friend reinforces consistency. Accountability does not mean judgment. It is simply a tool to keep your attention on integrating teachings meaningfully. When you track your actions, you also create a record of growth that motivates and guides future efforts. Patterns emerge, showing you where integration is successful and where more focus is needed. Challenging circumstances become fertile ground when you apply lessons actively. Difficult moments are tests and opportunities simultaneously. Instead of reacting out of habit, intentionally use the teachings to guide your response. A stressful conversation becomes an exercise in patience and clarity. A setback becomes a moment to practice resilience and adaptation. By applying knowledge during discomfort, you transform challenges into vehicles for growth, demonstrating that true understanding is not theoretical, but functional in real-life pressure. Application also strengthens intuition. Each time you act on insight, you create a feedback loop between inner understanding and external reality. Over time, this loop deepens your ability to sense the right action even before a conscious decision is required. Intuition becomes sharper because it is reinforced by repeated, practical engagement. Your mind learns the language of principles through experience, and choices that once felt uncertain begin to feel natural and aligned. Transformation expands beyond self when you apply teachings consistently. Your actions influence relationships, environments, and circumstances. When principles guide behavior, you create ripples of clarity, steadiness, and integrity around you. Others respond not to precepts, but to the consistency, energy, and presence you carry. By applying wisdom to action, you not only reshape your own experience, but also subtly alter the dynamics of the world you interact with. Persistence matters. Integration is not instantaneous. Some teachings require repeated application to become instinctive. When you encounter setbacks or lapses, observe them without self-recrimination. Each misstep is an opportunity to apply awareness and adjust course. The act of returning to deliberate practice strengthens the teaching's influence and gradually weaves it into the fabric of daily life. Patience and persistence ensure that insights are not fleeting but enduring. Applying teachings to reshape experience also demands presence. Each moment is an opportunity to act intentionally. If you move through life distracted by the past or anxious about the future, principles cannot anchor your choices effectively. By being fully present, you allow teachings to meet circumstances accurately. Presence ensures that your application is timely, relevant, and impactful, rather than theoretical or delayed. Over time, life begins to feel different. Decisions carry more clarity, relationships flow more smoothly, and challenges become manageable with confidence. You notice a coherence between your inner understanding and external actions that was previously absent. Each day becomes a canvas where principles are not just ideals, but living forces shaping how you think, feel, and interact. The more consistently you apply teachings, the more profound this transformation becomes, until your daily reality reflects insight, discipline, and intentionality naturally. Ultimately, applying teachings is the bridge between knowledge and transformation. Ideas alone cannot shape life, only action can. By deliberately integrating wisdom into choices, energy, and behavior, you move from passive understanding to active mastery. Each reflection, decision, and act, guided by principle, reinforces growth, cultivates resilience, and reshapes your experience. This practice turns knowledge into lived reality, making each moment an opportunity to align with truth, clarity, and meaningful purpose.